everyone. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday, everybody. How y'all doing? Just getting this set up so I can see y'all's comments. Here we go. So, what do you mean resin doodles? You need to talk to us about those, Miss Mandy. Mandy Roca mentioned doing resin doodles while she's watching me, and I'm quite curious what a resin doodle is. My husband called it resin doodles. Using purely pigments for transparent color sounds amazing. Hey Saskia, how you doing? We got Sherry Ellis, we got Mandy, we got Catherine Medford, we've got Sonia Young. Channel's filling up, everybody. Okay, so Catherine Medford just asked me while the broadcast was coming up. Hey, Sharon McCabe, how you doing, honey? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everybody's coming in. Catherine had asked me about that future floor polish stuff that I used. And you are correct. They did change the name. SC Johnson revitalized this, is called Revive. Hey, Lori Shaw, how you doing, honey? Welcome. And it's a floor gloss. Now, future floor polish is actually styronated acrylic. It was really popular when I was a kid. Of course, I'm definitely aging myself. When mom would clean the floor and then put this coating of this polish on, makes it shiny and slick, but the stuff has to actually be removed. Hey, Fairy Art Mother, welcome, welcome. Everybody's coming in, perfect timing. So future floor polish was used, 50, 60, 70, somewhere in there. And then people found a better way to top coat their clean floor, but it looked beautiful, but you had to strip it off. And the reason why it is a liquid styronated acrylic. It's not a polish at all. It is a styronated acrylic. Hey, Michelle D, welcome, welcome. I am. There's been a lot going on, Sharon. I'll try to nab it in a nutshell. The pandemic really, took a lot of companies for a roll, or most of us had to start working from home. And so, it's not gone, but now that basically we're living with COVID, things have to change. I need to hand back some of the work, a whole lot of the work, to my crew so they can do a much more efficient job than me. This is a good thing. So there's just been a lot of discussions about how to restructure this stuff, and it's put a lot of extra work on me. But the good news is that means I get to spend more time on teaching. That's where my role, I think, should be: experimenting, teaching, pushing the envelope, find out everything that we're making, and find out everything we can do with what I've created, and keep those juices, all of our creative juices, flowing. And maybe someday in 6 months, I might actually have time to put together a class. Who knows? But I'm real excited about this. I just had to make a decision that a lot of that effort has to go back to the crew. And it's the best thing in the world for the product and the company moving forward. Let them take over. So you may not always have me answer every email, but I'm definitely going to be there. It's not going to happen instantly, but I'll be definitely there to help you guys with product questions, and not much is going to change other than some of the workloads coming off my back. Yay. Anyway, this stuff was rebranded. Future Floor Polish, I don't think, was owned by SC Johnson. This was then bought by SC Johnson. Now, it used to be that I'm trying to remember the name of the big store that had the Future Floor Polish on the shelf. It's not that easy to find. toy train model guys, those guys that make the, paint their own toy train models. They use it as a top coat because it's a styronated acrylic. It makes it all shiny. I've seen them videos. If you go and look for videos, future floor polish, toy train, you'll see them actually take like the engine out that they're going to put in this little thing they're building, right? And they're painting the engine with a clear coat of this stuff to make it strong. And it is a liquid styronated acrylic. So when it dries, it can dry pretty stiff, right? I mean, our parents had to strip the floor. Now today, I'm not going to actually show you how to make it, but just as this live was coming on, Catherine Mefford had said she'd looked up future floor polish, says it was out of she couldn't find it. I'll try to see if I have the information where I bought this. I broke down and bought a half a dozen bottles because the freight was free, and then I knew I'd never run out of it, or there's a lesser chance of me ever running out of this stuff. Now, what are we all talking about? For those of you that are in here, you hated that stuff, but you won't now, and you see what it can do, Catherine. So I'm going to put what we're actually going to do today aside and talk about this since we brought this up. Yeah. For a shiny saddle, really, did it mess with the leather? That's interesting, Sharon. You used it on a saddle. That's pretty trippy there, right? All right, so I'm just getting my little tubs here so I can show them to you one at a time. Yep, you had to strip the floor. It wasn't fun. Okay, so here's what we're talking about. So I took primary elements. Here's a pink one, right? And cut up, I started with the grocery store bags, the plastic bags that I could trim up, lay out flat. I took an old credit card, squirted some of this on it, sprinkled some primary elements in it, and spread it out. Now, it takes about 2 weeks to really start forming what you want, but look at this. It looks like the coolest, it feels like a pounded, battered metal. You know, see, and they will stick together sometimes, you know, when they're in the cups. This is the one I had showed you on the last live. So it looks like it's a combination of colors that I tossed together here. It wasn't just one color that did this, right? More of a singular color, and I can't remember exactly which one this is. Oh, there's even something. I had them stacked, right? See, I stacked them on top of one and the other. I made these years ago, but if I had to guess, this is probably ginger peach, Sherry's favorite color. Now, because they're made with primary elements, if you lay them down and spray them with future, the future may reinvigorate the color, but it's also the future can be used to actually glue them down. I've done sections where I know, Sonia, where I sprayed it and laid it down as part of the art. But if you lay these under resin, the resin will not be able to reactivate the water-soluble color. Here's some that I think, this is probably Snapdragon, if I had to guess the color. But what's fun is think about doing them like a potpourri, right? Take a couple colors that you might want mixed together like this one, and then at the end, just kind of make your own little custom toss. I first discovered this when I had used these containers, these little funky salsa containers. I was putting the future floor polish and the primary elements in there and trying to paint with it. And this, oh my God, has to be at least 18 years ago when I experimented with this. And what formed on the bottom of the cup here, now this is probably not going to show the formations, but yeah, these will be beautiful in their resin. They're stunning. They have two sides to them. They have more where the mica falls on the bottom, and then not so much on the top. You can kind of choose which side you want to go. But where I was going with this explanation is when I first discovered it, what happened is the paint had stayed as a ring in the bottom of the cup, right? And it was a few weeks later, I stumbled on one of these things. I went, wow, look at that hard formed ring, round ring on the bottom of the cup. And I pulled it out. I said, wow, this feels like some kind of battered, pounded metal. I didn't know the future floor polish would dry like that. And so I saved all those rings up. I made a bunch more and saved some rings and used them as the center of a sunflower. I did an acrylic sunflower, big canvas, but the center of it was the rings kind of spread out. And then I sprinkled some of these in there to kind of simulate the seeds of the sunflower. So I'll just have to set up in stages so you can see literally how I do them from the beginning, what they're looking like while they're setting up, because it takes a couple weeks for them to completely dry up like this, and you start collecting them. You got to be really patient, and you just keep checking them, right? But they are fun, and it is the Pledge Revive It. I'll try to find who I bought this from. It was some little off-the-wall store that had a lot of stuff for the toy train guys. And so, hi Cindy, how you doing, honey? Yeah, I think they'd be great under resin. Really, really great under resin. So anyway, thank you, Catherine, for asking about it. That way I can open up with that and kind of give you guys that information. So the pieces that we did on Tuesday, I know Michelle saw them. By the way, Michelle D, that's in the feed, lives 13 minutes from me, and we finally met last Monday. So if she comments that she saw them in person, she did. She was able to come over here. But here's what happened. Oh, you're welcome, Catherine. Here's what happened when I did these nautical swipes. I noticed as soon as I put the white in the middle, it sunk. It kind of sunk down. So as I spun around, my blade in the center could catch the paint, but as it spun around and this part got stuck right here where the wood ends, and I couldn't go any further on either one of them. It sort of messed up the swipe. I can't decide whether I should, oh, you like the colors on this one. Well, maybe I won't cover this one up. That's it. Thank you for saying that. This was the other one that has this weird section in the middle that really needs to, really? Okay, fine, Michelle D. You guys are too sweet. So this has a lot of area to paint in. I'd have to really think about what I was going to do here. That I want to start with painting one that I know I have a little structure of, and then maybe we can daydream about what we would do here. I mean, I know I can fill in the warm autumn colors here that got missed. I know I can fill in the turquoise. I really, really do like that right here, that little oil spot effect right here, where the color was inside of the color, that little section right here. That right there under resin is going to be really, really, really super pretty. I know it will be. And you guys might be convincing me to touch this one up. But before we do, I just want to show you the basics of touching up something that's already been done. Now, these were both swipes that I did. They weren't the cross swipe or Nautilus swipe. I had just taken the palette knife and kind of did the little whoop, and the same thing on the other end, and spun it. But it was pretty boring. Don't cover, hun. I used to glue. What is she talking about? Don't cover. I use glue to place the silver glue or gold. Okay, so Let me explain what I did here. So on this piece, it was kind of boring. So you see all these veins of gold. All you do is take a little bit of water and the gold mica and paint it in with a paintbrush. That's all I did. The area here that was the hot pink, because it was kind of blah, I actually took some jasmine, a little bit of water in that, and ended up rubbing the rest of it in here with my fingers so I could get kind of a shadow effect. Over here was the Mystic Blue. Again, I didn't like the color that it turned out to be, so I hand painted all this Mystic Blue in with water. Same thing over here with water. And it kind of it fell right over the violet. There was a little bit of violet already in there, and they just kind of blended into each other. Then I resined it, right? So this was a piece that started what I'm saying kind of looks like this. It's okay, but it could stand some veining. It could maybe stand a little blush of some peach or a pink color here. I could warm up here with some of the jasmine. I could definitely touch up that turquoise here with the Guatemalan green. I'm thinking about doing some gold veining. I may need to do, and so what you do is you do the color first. Hey Dee, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. So you touch up the color first, right? Then if you think you need to make the black more crisp, then you can touch up the black, add in your gold veining, and as long as you guys don't mind spending 3 minutes with me, because I didn't mix up any resin already, I have no idea how long it's going to take for me to hand paint this thing. I could put the top coat on it, and then we got these colors coming through under the resin, right? And then this is a nice little piece I could give away, hang on the wall, give as a gift, whatever. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Those pieces, it could use a little zhuzh. Yes, zhuzh. Ferret mother's saying a little zhuzh. Okay. Now I'm sadly going to have to keep using this notebook until we figure out a better method for me to show you guys detail painting, because I need this thing at an angle. It's just a old white notebook. Oh, so sorry you had to go, sweetheart. Bye, Sherry. Good to see you, honey. So yes, it needs a little shush. Art resin. There's so many good resins out there though, Holland. There really, really are. Okay, so paint palette. I could mix up, the water and the pigment in one of these if you wanted to do that. I've used wax paper if I needed a surface to put it on. When I buy these cups that you see me use all the time, I'm stuck with a gang of these little tops, which I do like to use. I have another stack of these. I couldn't find more. This is left over when we did our purely pigment test, but that's not a bad little container to do this. So the actual firefly and the dragonfly wing set will match this peach color perfectly, but I don't expect to keep it that peachy tone. I can decide if I want to go full peach and add playful peony, or if I want to add a little pink. I might add a little tiny pink blush here where the gold is and leave this in the peach tones. Can't remember the name of it. Used which one, honey, on the red heart? And actually, all I need is, oh no, you're going to kill me. I have to go get my water. I left it in the kitchen. I'll be right back. I can't believe I left my water receptacle there. Entertain each other. Mandy, please explain what a resin doodle is. What is a resin doodle? Never heard of such a thing. When we were coming on the broadcast, Mandy was saying she was doing a resin doodle. And that means she's doodling in resin and making little swatches? Or is she actually doodling with a pencil? And I couldn't quite catch, other than Fernando had called them her doodles, which I think is so cute. You guys are adorable. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, she's my neighbor. Lucky or unlucky as you might, however you might want to view that. So I'm going to spritz just a little water in these. It doesn't take much. Let me see how much I can get this down here. I know this sounds crazy, but I have all these caps. I don't need much to touch up this piece. I can also use varnish. You don't have to use water if you don't want to. I just wanted to show you guys there is an alternative, right? So I still haven't, I cleaned up my desk so much I have not found my spoons like the ones I sent Catherine. I am naked without my measuring spoons. I know it's somewhere here where I cleaned it up. I have one of these, but this thing's too big. I'll just have to try to be careful and not use too much. Thank you, Cindy. So glad to see you, sweetheart. Glad you could join us. Yeah, Saturdays and Sundays are tricky. Sometimes it's really great. $104 for a 27-ounce bottle? Is that what you just said? This thing? That's a 27-ounce bottle. They cost me $6.99. I don't think so. That sounds a little high. Okay, so I'm going to do something interesting. I'm just going to put dry powder in this one. The color I think I'm going to blend into, which is the Playful Peony. So I'm starting first with the Firefly and the Playful Peony. The Firefly is wetted down. Everybody's starting to look for future, for the future stuff. Yeah, 100, that's too expensive. Somebody on Amazon knows that it's not actually the easiest thing to find, huh? Shame on them, that's way too much. $6 to $8 for a bottle is pretty fair, you know, especially since, okay, so here's the Firefly. First thing I'm gonna do is say, does this match? Now, I may not have enough pigment in here for the water. My mix looks a little bit washy. So I'm actually gonna pick up, literally stuck my brush in here, picked up some pigment, whatever my brush would pick up, touching it up again right here. I just only want a little moisture on my brush, right? I'm not trying to get this all wet and watery. Okay. It's pretty, a little pinky. Looks like it's trying, the water is kind of trying to resist this. But now I'm gonna have, I now have the dry Playful Peony right on the tip of my brush, just dry. Now see what happens. I'm taking the dry stuff, it's grabbing the moisture from the whatever little bit of moisture is already on my brush, and it's spreading this like a pastel. Instead of my finger, I'm able to spread this. You don't need much water on that brush. If it gets too wet, you can kind of tap some of the water off. It's really about the brush being moist, right? Not about, here, I'll show you one more time. There's a little moisture still on my brush. I'm tapping some dry powder that is here. Yeah, well, let's hope it's the right Revive. Remember, it's the Revive. There's several of them. You want Revive It Floor Gloss. It must be this stuff, long-lasting shine. You want it to be the polystyrene. acrylic. Okay, so the brush is just moist. All I've done is put more powder on it. See, and I'm almost spreading this like a pastel. See what's happening here? A little bit cleaner than your finger. Okay, now there's some really nice color there popping up in an area which was kind of boring, right? See, it's still blending down, and I've not added any more moisture to my brush. I've got another area up here that looks like it could benefit from the same color. Let's see if I can do it. Yep, there's still some moisture on my brush. Real simple. And when you do a top coat of resin, it's not going to disturb it because the resin is not water-soluble color. If I was to spritz this with water, all that color would run because I'm only using water, a moist brush, to apply it, right? And now you can actually see where that blush is. Now, I don't know if I'm done with that color. I think it might look interesting also to do another. My brush is getting a little dry, so I'm gonna dip it in the Firefly, and then I'm gonna, where I had the water, I'm gonna dip it back into the Playful Peony and see if I can't get almost like an accent ring here, right? Now this brush may be too big to do what I'm trying to accomplish. Make sure I get my brush nice and flat. Might need something smaller to tap that in. Right. The primary elements can be basically behave like a pastel. By the way, guys, this is super fun to do. It's really relaxing. It's close to Fairy Art Mother, who loves to play with her very expensive pencils. She does a lot of beautiful pencil work, and it's relaxing. Like I said, detail painting like this. Now, see, that's a lot of water in there. That little bit of water I just added to my brush. See how it's beating up? Now I'm going to brush all that water off. Get just some dry pigment back in here and see if I can't get that water back into moisten my brush. There we go. Now the water's going back into my brush. So then I just put dry pigment on it. That's all that's on there. Get that sucker to spread. Here we go. Again, I should have probably changed brushes, but you're going to see what happens if I'm using a brush that is a little bit big, right? Here's a smaller one. Now, you guys didn't see me do it, but I have a terrible habit of putting a paintbrush in my mouth to moisten the tip. So you didn't see me do that. But see, I've added another vein of that can be brushed in. Now there's a little excess powder there. Blow it off. Sorry, I'm not trying to waste any primary elements. Those of you that are worried about me wasting primary elements, right? So that's kind of interesting. That adds some more interest to, not the only one. Oh, yeah, actually there's an old photo of me from 27 years ago, the very first trade show I ever did. And there was a photo taken of me painting, and I was doing this. I was painting, and they got a photo of me doing that. And so I kind of got, and I kept saying, remember, you don't really want to put a paintbrush in your mouth, tell kids not to do it, because, you know, paint can get caught up in the ferrule, right? It's necessarily, we're here to eat paint, right? But it is a habit to try to get the point on your brush, okay? So, This is kind of interesting what I've done so far. I'm not gonna get rid of these. I just want them aside in case I need them. This is exactly how you be working on your table, going, okay, I'm gonna start with these two. If I need the colors again, I've always got them set to the side. One color I really want to touch up is that Guatemalan green in here. It's a really, really, really pretty color. Let me get my brushes rinsed out. Get all that. I reset the butcher paper every couple days, so this is butcher paper that I'm painting on. I'm not actually painting directly on my table. I will say, though, the paper's really pretty. We're doing this for a bit. So, again, now we know we don't need that much water, right? That is way overkill on the water. So I'm going to pour most of it off into this little thing. I'm just going to leave a drop in here and make sure my paintbrush that I'm having good luck with doesn't have any more pink in it. Let's get some of this Guatemalan green. I know, it looks blue. It is labeled Guatemalan green, though. Yep. So we will see more green as soon as the color wakes up. Remember, these are not mica powders. These are ground color and mica, okay? Now, I am going to use this little brush here just to get a little bit of clean water on me. We're going to do this the other way around rather than trying to mix it in. See how it's turning into a green teal? As soon as that moisture hits it, it's not that blue anymore. It still feels way too watery. So this is not going to be my wet part. I am going to keep this jar where I can tap in and get a little more color on it. Just a tiny bit more color. Have fun, sweetheart. My niece, fabulous, guys. Absolutely fabulous. Fantastic. I'm so happy I did it, even though the therapy took really much longer than I had hoped. And when you get older, sometimes it's not just the knee that needs work. There's other body parts, right? Everything has to be coordinated to get it to work together. So I picked it. This brush has some moisture on it. I really didn't mean to do that, but I got myself caught in this corner where I didn't want to have too fat of a brush. I'll be switching back and forth between these two. So we're just kind of dressing up what color we lost in that Guatemalan green. Yeah, well, it started with a back issue. And then when they realized my legs were crooked, they say, you know, it doesn't do any good to give you back injections if your legs aren't going to work. So now that all the parts of the reminds me of the grape nuts commercial. All parts of the grape nuts are edible. Now that all parts of my body are working in concert, I am one happy little girl, let me tell you. Feels good to walk around. Now, I did fall and I can't get up on my own yet. So the next goal is rehab, 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 rehab. Teach myself to get up off the floor by myself. And I've lost quite a bit of weight. It wasn't like I forced myself to do it, but, you know, it really helps. You know, I have 40 pounds less to pull up off the floor. I'm going to keep sticking with this small brush since I've got a nice consistency. And I'm going around here just kind of picking up where there was Guatemalan green, want to make it a little bit brighter. It's okay. Some of this autumn leaf will peek through, but that's okay. So, you know, it is my painting. I get to decide when it's done, right? It's over when I say it's over. This looks like this had some green. So you just kind of go around and look for the next color areas that you can fill in. I can even do my edges here to make it look nice and complete. Why not? Of course, I can get away. This looks like I could get away with more peach. This says picking up a peachy tone. That might be cool to add this peach tone over here. Right? But while I've got green on my brush, the Guatemalan green on my brush, let's not get sidetracked. But now I've seen another spot that I could accent that I think might look really nice before I finish this thing. So let's pull in some of this turquoise that's missing. The brush is looking a little bit moist again, so I'm adding a tiny bit of straight powder. So to smooth out and starts, here we go, it's starting to behave like a pastel. A nice, smooth, creamy pastel that you can paint on. What happened to her? You mean you wished you could have fixed her? Is Mom no longer with us, hon? There's a lot of things I wish I could have done for my mom. Moms are good. They're the amazing ones that take care of us through all of this, right? Now, this looks like this could benefit from the Bolivian blue, which is a deeper teal that I'm going to be bringing in here next, okay? So I'm now looking if there's anywhere else. This kind of is drab, is like, what are we going to do with this? Does it go dark? Does it go light? Does it go peach? Let's add a little accent of the Guatemalan green here. And you, if you want to feel tactile and take your finger and rub it in, you can. Anywhere where it looks like it's missing a spot. This gray isn't thrilling me. I'm not that tickled with all the gray. So I guess I'm forcing my color palette in here, right? To try to relieve ourselves of some of this gray area. And I'm just letting the brush take me where I think we should go. I mean, this I'm going to leave for the Bolivian blue. Okay, so there was a place over here where I thought the peach might fit. Before I distract myself, I'm washing both my brushes out, getting that green off. And remember, I have these already tuned up and ready here. I'm going to use a smaller brush. Make sure I got as much moisture off there as I can. I'm just going to pick up a drop of that wetted, oh, that firefly is finally turning into a paste. Interesting. And a little dap of the, oh, man. People that had to have surgeries during COVID. Is that what happened? She had to have surgery? Oh, you vetoed the lumbar surgery. Oh, look what's happening. I'm just kind of overpainting this. Should have way too much paint on my brush. Excuse my French there. I almost said the S word. Oops. I don't normally want to curse on a camera. Shoot. I almost missed it. I don't want it in that gray. I just want a little, it feels too wet. A little bit too wet there. Yeah, I agree. You know, people that had to have had to have emergency surgery during the COVID, it was always a risk, man. It was always that risk. And everybody's body is different. There is no way of knowing. It's not a one size fit all when it comes to that stuff, right, girls and boys? That's just not. Okay, so we're getting some brighter color. This is starting to look a little bit more colorful than when we started. I still think this needs some kind of blush in here. And I mean, I could do a surprise jasmine over here and make that gold, even though this is really sparkly. It's going to sparkle nice under the under that resin. So I'm going to set this Guatemalan green inside just in case I need it. Hopefully we don't. Looks like we've got enough of that on there. And this is another color I used in that swipe that everybody was asking about. It's a really dark turquoise called Bolivian Blue. Beautiful color. It's kind of smoky, right? But don't let what's in the jar deceive you. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous turquoise. Actually, I dumped more on the table than I got on my thingy there. Darn it. I'm making a mess. And you didn't even see me do it. I made a mess. See, I got more on the table than I got in my little container here. The thing is, you don't need much. You just need a couple specks. Yeah, this is a super pretty color. I hate wasting any of it. I mean, I don't think any of us like wasting colors or paints. Speaking of that, I have something to say real quick, and it was a friend that came to visit me who pointed this out. She says, I don't understand why some people say color art or primary elements are so expensive because it goes far. But then she also pointed out how afraid she was to pick it up and use it because it was so pretty, and she'd spent her $12 less 20% coupon code to buy it. But because it wasn't a cheap, ready-to-pour paint, she felt like she should know how to do more before she used it. But if you're not using it, that is kind of expensive, isn't it? And as you can see what I'm doing here, a little bit goes a long way. So it really will spread for you. It'll give you a lot of love and color. Trust your primary elements. When you get your product, open it up, paint a little color chart. Does not do you any good being afraid to use it, and walk by, as I say all the time, leave it in a drawer on a shelf and walk by and pet it. I do that all the time. I'm speaking from experience. I've gone to so many trade shows where I've got stuff that may not be paint related, or I bought out the stock of a paper company. They had all this handmade paper, but all I really did was walk by and pet it in the paper tree. I was terrified to cut it up. I thought I might ruin it. So here we go. Now we're talking about our favorites, and that's good, guys, because and it's not just color art products. Use what you have in your stash. Start using what you have. Give yourself that gift. You bought it for yourself. Use it. Back to our project. Sorry, making my little point. I'm off my soap stand. Well, thank you, Dee. That's very sweet. But she was serious. She says, I was afraid I was going to mess it up. And that's not uncommon. That is one of the more common things I hear people say. I'm afraid to use it. I'll wait until I am better. Better at what? Okay, here you go. Here's that Bolivian blue. And it is such a beautiful color. I'm that way. Me too. I'm terrified to start with a brand new expensive canvas. Like I'm somehow going to screw it up. You keep seeing me use these little thin 7/8 cents, even on, this happens to be a gallery wrap, but it was from a couple years ago. I still have that mindset that somehow I'm going to blow it. So my brush is a little bit wet. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of the dry Bolivian blue on it so we can turn this kind of more into a pastel. Well, but then every time we practice with them, we get better and better, right? So, all right. I could be wrong, but I think the Bolivian blue, ooh, look at that, might fit right here. There's this section where it had blue. It was really smoky and gray. It's a little bit wet. And I know this is going to seem crazy, but I'm literally going to paint right over this black section. It's too smoky gray for me. That's what I did on that other piece where I had that really long blue sections. I was painting over where it turned gray and adding a blast of some color. And areas here where it's white, it's going to come up as a different color. I mean, this is, after all, my painting, right? I might put a little vein of black and gold right in there, so I'm going to leave that empty in case I want to do that. Let's switch to, where is our smaller brush? I don't know, but here's another one that's smaller. I don't want to mess this up. I'm going to just spread this out so the smokiness sort of picks up that color, but it gets less and less strong as it gets to the edges. And then you can see there's different shades of that turquoise in there. That's just pulling it up, right? I'm me too, Catherine, not yet. Other than alcohol. It's not going to work in alcohol, I don't believe. But yeah, this area over here, since I think we should have, yeah, she really used the primary elements before they got their own coloring system. You're correct. Somebody just said that Sheila used the primary elements on her video. She did. She most certainly did. Okay, so let's add another little. So where else could we use this? Like the black can stay black. That's not too bad. I really don't care for so much of the gray. I guess I can do the same treatment over here where this gray is. Otherwise, it's going to look a little lost. Just kind of continue with the color that I've got going on here. Spread this out. Taking my finger and trying to smooth it in a little bit. Just give it a hint. Like I said, it starts to behave like a pastel that you can smooth around if you really want to. I'm going to do a gold vein, probably straight gold vein here and all the way up. So I'm going to leave that free for the gold vein. Oh, thank you. First time I've actually heard that is somehow we're less expensive. Everybody always says the ColorArte's more expensive, and we're not for what you get for your dollar. And that's okay. There is lots of great coloring systems on the market. For me, as long as you play with the paints you have, I'm doing my job. I feel like my job is to push myself and you guys to not leave a project to wait, go in and try to finish it, not leave our goodies in a drawer and just walk by and pet them, actually use them. Okay, so this is getting kind of bold. It's interesting that pure, it's real dark up here, but down here I'm getting like a darker smoky turquoise, and all I'm doing is spreading out the Bolivian blue a little bit thinner and thinner. Up here it has more of a true blue cast. Okay, now one more place we've got to touch up. Of course, we've got this gray area here too, but I think I'm going to do some black and gold in there and then decide if it needs anything else before I go hog wild crazy. Last thing we're going to touch up is this autumn leaf area and a little bit of the, I got to get all these jars out of the way so I don't dump them over, because we're going to mix up some resin, do a little top coat here in a couple minutes. So I have some autumn leaf and actually some jasmine. Jasmine may be overkill, and I may have to go back to the playful peony, because a playful peony put in here as a blush may work better. I have aubergine, but I think the aubergine is too strong. So let's get these brushes cleaned off. Get all the color out of them, so we're not transferring color on something we don't want it to transfer to. And I probably don't need much more autumn leaf, but I'm going to have some here just so I could use it as a blending thing. I believe that firefly will still help to moisten my brush, believe it or not, because the firefly sort of, I mean, it does have a, even though it's pink, maybe not. Okay, I'll use some straight water again. I got some straight water in one of my cool little lids. Notice it's only taken a couple drops of water to do this whole thing. It does not take much at all. Making sure my brush is clean, clean water. Get all this off. Rather than trying to mix it in, I'm just going to see what happens if I try to pick up some of this with that brush. And got to pick an area to do a little test in, just to see how it's going to paint on. Ooh, look at that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Dudes, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Okay, so I got to get the little brush. I got a really skinny one here that my gold's going to be done with, but I want to get this excess powder off right here. Are you seeing what's happening here? How bright that autumn leaf is coming up? Don't be deceived by this in the powder in the jar. It is a beautiful autumn brown. But because there's so much color in it, it's more of a dry mix. The color really doesn't show up until it's moistened. So what I'm going to do is just try to take the areas where I might shade it with the darker brown. And then we're just going to come up with a, it's either going to be the peony. I may be able to do a peony with a pop of the jasmine. So I'm just taking the darkest area and just accenting it. Basically, I'm repainting my whole pour, almost. I mean, it is my piece. I can do what I want. Let's see what everybody's saying. Thank you. Wine and Roses is gorgeous. Ugh. Talk about one of those. That's in that Bright Bloom set that's we sell over and over and over again. That set really just does never go out of properly. We named it when the whole bloom technique came out, but we just wanted to put in really pretty, bright colors of every kind you can imagine that would pop, pop, pop when people are doing that technique. So I'm still going around, and I'm going to deepen, basically decide where the dark part is in this. I think you get the point of this demonstration, though. It's been sitting there. I've been wanting to do something with it. Now, see, this is already dried and I touched it up. It looks a little weirdly brown until that resin pops on top of it. Don't be afraid. The resin will bring all that color back, every bit of it. Thanks. She can't wait for the resin. Yeah, but I want to get some more accents in here before we do that, right? So I'm just kind of twirling it around, looking for where I could add a little punch. Zhuzh, Furry Art Mother says, zhuzhing it up. We're zhuzhing this up. Zhuzh. You know, it reminds me of the name Vavoom when we did Vavoom Red. You know, I don't like how dull that autumn leaf's going, be honest. So I'm going to do something out of the ordinary. I got 1 drop of varnish here in my little thingy. I'm going to put 1 drop of varnish on the end of my brush and see what happens, because you have an option. You can look. Can you see that? Look at that right there where I put the varnish on. Holy moly. Okay. Yep. I'm adding this little varnish. The brown needs it. The rest of the colors look fabulous, but this brown really needs that varnish accent. Wow. Look at that. No, I'm not. Well, you could, but I was just going to put a top coat on this, honey, and call it done, right? So I'm going back where I just did it, and I'm adding this little tiny bit of varnish. It won't hurt it. It will definitely be compatible. But the varnish is waking up the color. The water's not doing a good enough job for me. See, you always have the right to fix it, right? So I'm getting a tiny bit more varnish on the brush. Yeah, look at that. Woo! Okay, this is making my eyes very, 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 very happy. How many berries was in that? Oops. I think the camera's out of shot here. Here we go. That was a lot of berries in my very, very, very. A little bit out of my realm here. Oh yeah, that is so much prettier. So again, I'm showing how I used to do it with water. You have a choice. I will say that the varnish really wakes it up. Does not take much at all. Hey, Sherry. I put the autumn leaf on with the water, and now I'm showing by zhuzhing it up with a little bit of varnish what happens to that color when I add a tiny bit of varnish, like right here where it's wet, and the autumn leaf. It is stunning what varnish is doing. So I laid down some autumn leaf wet with water, and I'm reactivating it with a little bit of varnish to bring up that color. I want that warmth. I mean, it's an autumn brown. There's a lot of oranges and reds in this thing. So it deserves to have some pop, 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 pop. Let's see what everybody's saying. Yeah, it'll make it pop for sure. Everything looks pretty with a little bit of resin on top. Now, if you're allergic, there is a varnish. It's by a company called Crystal Lac. It is probably one of the most expensive varnishes out there. This is a fabulous varnish to paint with. It is. But for the top coat, something called Bright Tone, B-R-I-T-E, Tone, made by a company called Crystal Lac. It is the more expensive. It's as expensive as resin. But you can actually pool it up. Like I take it in a bottle and pour it in the pockets on a piece, and it dries beautifully almost like you were playing with resin. So if you've got an allergy and you can't use resin, you might enjoy top coating your stuff with that Bright Tone by Crystal Lac. It is a pretty color. Okay, so I promised to do something with the pink, and I don't know if the pink may be too much. Personally, I think I should be putting in some of the Playful Peony. I don't know if the pink will do this. This is my experiment. I've got an off, and you know how strong jasmine is. I'm actually going to wipe some of it off. I just want a tad on my brush. See what happens if I add. Okay, where's my varnish? Here it is. There's so much color in there from that autumn leaf. I just want a two-tone in here. Again, more zhuzhing up. That's not too bad, actually. So I left some lighter areas, and I'm going to take and just kind of blush it up. It adds a little more dimension to that brown, and where it's not just one flat color, right? But if it gets too sticky, that tiny bit of resin, tiny bit of varnish is going to make it flow better. Give it a little accent. Yeah, she's right. Don't overbrush with your varnish either. Actually, when I varnish, I go one direction left to right, one direction left to right, almost the old school way of how you used to put on crackle paste. I don't swish swash back and forth at all, like cross hatching, cross blending. Add some of this jasmine here, warm this up. And it's hard to tell that it's jasmine going in, right? But see, the jasmine's strong enough to really take that autumn leaf and add a little blush to it. The Playful Peony, I was a risk because it could have been too strong, but I was worried that the Playful Peony would be too similar to the autumn leaf and not give us some contrast. There's another area where I just put it on with water, needs to be woke up with, let's see if we can get up here, it needs to be woke up with the varnish. Ooh, basically I've repainted almost the whole thing, right? It's okay. It's a fun thing to do on a Saturday afternoon and sit back and relax. Like I said, if you like playing with the coloring pencils and stuff. Now I have a little open area here. I can color each one of these little cells in. Make it kind of interesting, right? It is my piece after all. Just want to make sure this all blends and looks like it belongs. Yeah, Saskia likes her spray varnish. She's told me that a couple times. And I like the Bright Tone, but I can pool it up. If I had to sit and swish swash it back and forth, spray varnish has its place, man, because it's not going to disturb what you've laid down. You know, some people like to do that and then go over with another layer. So I'm going to try to transition into where I got this peach and this autumn leaf thing happening. Looks like I'm going to need a little tiny bit more autumn leaf. It's too hard of a transition in here. Yeah, my brush has way too much stuff on it. I just want clean varnish. Oops. This is where the finger comes in. Right? Just soften it in. So it makes a transition. Yeah, there's way too much liquid on there. That's a little more autumn leaf I just put in there. Just want it to blend out. Looks like a natural transition. Nothing too harsh, I'll say. So what else have I got? This looks like it needs a little bit of a touch up here. Little boring. We've really dressed up this corner over here, right? Keep working on that section. Now, the thing with the water, it's easy to rub in with the water. It's not as easy to rub it in with the varnish. Now, here's a brand new brush that's dry. I haven't used anything. And I'm just going to kind of feather that resin color into what I'm doing. And that way I can fade it out. All right. Wow. There's a lot to touching this thing up, right? I mean, I knew I wanted to do it all along. I feel like this should have some of that dark Bolivian blue right there. Now that we've gotten to that corner, I know I want to do the gold veins. Okay, so let's start with gold veins. Let's see where I can add a gold vein. Yeah, she's right about primary elements looking fabulous under resin. Saskia said it looks fabulous under resin. She's right. It has that dichroic glass effect. It's a type of glass that they use to make jewelry. Think of the crow dyed ick, if you ever want to look it up. Dichroic glass is beautiful. And our colors under resin are, I must admit, are pretty darn glorious. So I'm just getting my tops on before I dump something by accident. Now I'm going to try to do the gold with the water. I don't think. Hi, Ladalise 56. How are you doing, sweetheart? Welcome, welcome. Glad you could join us. Welcome to the broadcast of ColorPlay. Okay, I don't necessarily sing all the time, but hey, we're welcoming somebody new. Welcome, welcome. So there's this color. I like the really fine gold. Even though Canadian, that golden maple is stunning. Don't get me wrong, it is absolutely stunning. But if I'm going to do fine veins, I want a really ultra fine gold. So I think, I don't know, part of me is telling me to go to varnish. I mean, we've graduated to varnish already. I'm getting nervous at this point. I may not seem nervous all along, but now coming the veining, this is the thing I don't want to screw up. Well, hi, Holland. Oh, a jellyfish stencil. Really, Saskia? Your friend said, wow. That's amazing. Okay, so I'm mixing up this, we call it red gold. We have a couple fine golds on the site. I think solar gold is the finest gold. I probably should put the red gold up there. I've been talking about doing it. It's just getting the picture of it up and all that stuff. But most of you will probably have some kind of fine gold, right, in your stash. Here's my little wet mass of gold. Now, another gold, even though we don't sell it, there is this stuff, but you have to use turpentine to clean your brushes and make sure you do not use a natural brush. You want something synthetic if you're going to play with like turpentine and things, because you do not want it to eat up the bristles, and it will. Now, it doesn't need to be everywhere, but anywhere where you feel it would benefit from an accent, or to pick up some areas that looks like it needs some framework. Little something, something to add a little gold flash. You can add a little color to it. Say you wanted to add a little Indian yellow to this, like any kind of fine gold that you've got, one of the purely pigments would make beautiful gold lines for you. Oh, great. Saskia's going to use the purely pigments with the stencil. I can't wait to see that, honey. Seriously. I just want you to see that you have an option to add some gold veining, right? It is your piece after all. You know, add some accents. I'm so tired of having pieces sitting around my house and saying, well, it's sort of okay. I like that part, but I don't like this part. Well, then I'm just as guilty. They just sat there. Now look at this. I'm kind of painting the gold over that black area. I'm getting really interesting gold green. Look at that. Wasn't planning on it, but what a beautiful accident. Accident. Yes, Holland, I am the creator of Color Art products. That's me. These are my children, my babies. Yes, ma'am. These are my babies. I founded Color Art, the company, and these are all of my products. And I feel like I said, the new wind is I'm going to start settling down and spending more time teaching how to use them and hand off running the company back to the employees. COVID's as far away as it's going to be. We kind of all have to get back to work here, kiddo. You know, it's time to get back to work. So it's crazy. I'm liking that green that I'm getting on top of that Bolivian blue. I'm not sure. I know this is nuts because I just painted it. Look at that. Can you see that color? It's kind of a crazy patina almost. Yeah, the gold on top of that. And it makes sense. I mean, a yellow gold on top. Well, now I don't, wait a minute, clean my brush. I'm starting to transfer the gold, the green where I didn't want it to go. Let's get back to gold. We can play with the green gold effects in a minute. I want to make sure I get some nice bright yellow gold veining in here. I haven't screwed it up, right? So you can also accent areas with the gold. This definitely looks like it needs a pretty gold vein right here, a nice, beautiful line of gold. It's screaming, paint me gold. Paint me gold, right? Wow, that's kind of cool too, filling all that in with gold right there. That feels really good. I'm just like, this is intuitive, guys. This was not all planned in advance. I'm just rolling around this canvas, seeing where I think I can keep accenting my piece, so when we put it under resin, it pops. And I'm liking where it's going here, these little accents. You can put them as accents, you can do actual veins, right? Like this could handle a gold vein right across this section right here. Kind of a accent that beautiful green. That Guatemalan green that we laid down right here. Let's add a little vein of gold around it. It's not catching right. I don't know if the resin, if the varnish is too wet. Give me a minute. I think I need a little bit more powder. I think this is much more creative than just, I know it's plain, but the thing is, Judy, as you do each sections and then they come alive and then you turn it again, another section's gonna pop up and say, hey, I need some gold, or hey, I need some green, or hey, right? So as this comes to life, I mean, I hear artists talk about this, the painting's speaking to you. Touch me up more. Give me an accent here. Give me an accent there, right? But thank you for saying my process is creative. I appreciate it. See, that little cool green effect was unexpected. I kind of like that. I'm going to finish it right here just so, because I stopped it in that one section. So just so, even though this is the wrong brush for it, I'm just going to finish it up because it looks like I stopped and started there. So I kind of want to have that goldy green effect. Okay, so final touch would be touch up the black. And let me find my Vivid Intense Carbon Black. You know what? I've got Payne's Gray. That's what's on my table. That's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to touch the black up with a little bit of Payne's Gray. I was actually, now another option is you can then shadow areas. And since I brought up the Payne's Gray and I brought up shadowing, let's see if this will work. Now this is already a liquid. It's not like a powder. I'm going to be able to do the same thing too like the other areas. So I got to find another lid for this thing. I did have a pile of lids here. This has water in it. Let's see. I'm going to squirt a little Payne's Gray in the cup there. Now, one thing you can also do is create shadows. So if I was to take a little bit of a shadow here, a little bit of a shadow here, you can make the piece push even further forward. Yes, everything by ColorArte is mine. So the Vivid Intense is also my product, sweetheart. Anything that's sold by ColorArte are my designs. The entire collection. I've been doing this for 28 years, Holland. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so this is just pure Payne's Gray. I'm going to do a little test that looks kind of dark, right? So how do I get just a hint of it on the canvas and risk it right here just to get you what I'm talking about, doing some shading? Okay, there's the Payne's Gray. Now, this takes more time. You really got to be careful when you're doing this. But you can always add shadows to your artwork. Heck, the background doesn't need to be white. If I really wanted to go all in, I could paint this whole background red, couldn't I? But for the sake of finishing our video, I'm going to go ahead and use the Payne's Gray. Let's see what it looks like painting over the black. If it allows me to brighten up the black any. I'm going to start right here, and this is just straight Payne's Gray, Vivid Intense. Now, another reason why, even though black we know makes color pop, black is also the absence of color. And so using a color that looks black, but it's actually made out of color to get it that dark, looks a little bit more organic. Okay, now I got to use my wrist and be really careful on these curves, guys. So bear with me because I'm fighting with the camera in front of my face at the same time while I'm trying to make sure you see this. And I see somebody said something, but I'm not going to lift my head and look until I get this section done, and I hope you can see me paint it. So I'm just filling in the black area, especially in the center where I really want it to pop. And you can't even tell the Payne's Gray is not black. It's just making it look fresher. But by putting color on top of that black, it looks more natural, more organic. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to be really careful and let you see me add in this veining. Yeah, it's a little bit strong, but because I'm trying to, I know. This is something normally you would do off camera, sit on your table in front of the TV and just do this tiny little detail paint work, especially if it's a piece you want, a big piece you want to sell and you want to add some gorgeous accents to it. Why not? It's not done until you say it's done. Right, Fairy Art Mother? You know, when I first started, my terrifying journey of playing with resin, she kept reminding me, Leslie, you can also do a second layer. Remember, it's only paint. I know she's right, but still you carry that thing of what if I screw it up somehow? So I'm just accenting the bigger, darker black areas with this Payne's Gray. Especially if a little bit of the metallic went over the top, it would kind of, sparkly stuff on top of black has a tendency to mute the black. And so bringing back some crisp lines in your art, and I know I'm getting a little bit out of the thingy, but I'm doing the best I can on camera, but it's going to add a little bit more of a pop. Pop, 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 pop. You want it to pop, right? Here's another area. Can use a little brightening. See, now that drifts off into here, so it doesn't need to really go up any further. But then we can skip that little gold vein there that I put in there and drop down and kind of accent this black area here. And this little bit of paint's going to go a long, long way. Now, this is just purely pigments out of the bottle on my paintbrush, the Payne's Gray. It's a perfect consistency and very, very saturated. I don't know. I think I'm going to fill in this whole thing with the Payne's Gray. Why not? It is, after all, my piece, right? This little section here. Now, my baby finger is resting on the canvas while I'm doing this. I'm not just floating in midair. It's still a challenge, though, to hold the canvas up with my left hand. I know you won't have to paint it in the same manner I am, right? being stuck like that. But see how that pink kind of went over the black there? So by touching up the black or your dark area again, it brings your lines crisper, makes them crisper. Nice, crisp, pretty lines. Now these look a little bit too tiny and detailed for me to touch. These look risky. So I'm going after the bigger ones. This is that area that I kept touching up. And there's just enough room here to add some pretty details to here. I'm sure you guys all have a piece sitting at home, sort of finished, but you never thought you'd ever want to hang it on the wall or do something with it because it's got a part that you sort of like, so you kept it, you didn't throw it away, and you didn't cover it up, but not enough to hang it on the wall. So in my opinion, maybe it's not done yet, and it needs a little TLC from you. So, okay, so I've done some darkening here. It's a little bit drastic. I've done a little darkening here. This one needs a little bit more, and then I'm gonna mix up this resin. I wish I'd had Fairy Art Mother sent me this resin mixing machine. And by the way, I am terrible when it comes to mechanical things. That at this point, I'd be tossing the resin in. It would be mixing for us while I'm finishing up the black area. She's so generous to send it to me. I do need to figure it out or get one of the boys over here to help me set it up. She said, it's only one little part. Put it on, it'll work. So maybe we'll do a phone call and she can walk me through it. I feel like an absolute dummy. Now this is kind of gray for me. Doesn't look that pretty. It's sort of a big area to try to do with a tiny little brush. So I'm just going to smooth out the Payne's Gray here and see where you can actually see it is Payne's Gray. It's still going to make it more interesting than this just big gray mass that's right here. So I'm choosing to smooth the Payne's Gray around so it actually looks like Payne's Gray right here. Because it is, after all, my piece. Okay. So we've dolled this up enough. I think you guys get the point, okay? So let me get part A, part B, and the little cup out. But you're gonna have to bear with me just a second, guys. I'm gonna get, oh shoot, here they are. When you're doing your part A and part B, make sure you're using something that you can actually measure. You don't use a scale. It's done by volume, okay? You guys have never actually seen me do this on camera. I don't need much for this. 6 probably will be overkill, right? Well, you're going to see it after I pour it on, and then it'll be dry when we see it Tuesday. But I'm actually going to go for 6 ounces. I know that 4 may be enough. But I wish I could figure out a way to measure 2.5, 2.5. So this is 1 part. You see it's up to the 3 ounces. Not all resins are equal part A and B, but these I find are the easiest ones. No scale or no funny red drops that smell like funky turpentine. And then I'm going to pour another 3 ounces of the part B in here. Make sure you back off to allow for it to drip in to level off. Always back off a little bit more than you think. You can always add more, but you can't take it away, right? So there's that. And then it has to be mixed for 3 minutes. which typically what I'll do, oh, it is art resin. Here, let me see if I can get it's art resin. Now, if you can get yourself a wholesale account from your state where you live, like if you resell something, they do have a wholesale program for people to buy the resin at wholesale. So it's not a bad thing to look into if it's something that you're interested in and you want to buy. Once you're using it and decide it's something you want to use, okay? So then you mix it for 3 minutes. Now, I can look at my timer and see that it says 9:28, 90 minutes and 28. So I could stop at 93:28. But I also will count to 180, which is what? 3 minutes, right? So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I gotta say, art resin's a pretty good resin, you know. In 2019, there was art resin, or end of 18 and 19, there was art resin in Stone Coat Countertop, which is also a fantastic resin. They make good resin products there. And now, with this prediction that resin is about to explode here soon, there are more companies on the market offering resin than ever, right? And everybody's going no VOC, low VOC, non-toxic. I promised myself the next time, maybe Tuesday when we do epoxy, you're gonna see me in a doctor's shield, because you really shouldn't be wearing a respirator. The little bubbles that pop up in the air. And at first I thought, why would I wear a respirator? It's the first time I was ever mixing the resin. And then I looked up in my lights and go, oh wow, where did all those little gnats come from? They were bubbles floating up in the air popping, right? So technically we're halfway mixed. The timer's saying 92.8 and I'm gonna stop at 93.28. So we're only a minute away, if that. It's just hard to talk on camera when you've got one of those masks that look like the fly with the thing on each side. And I realize that's no excuse. So I'm going to say, please use every precaution you can. I am in a 2-story, it's got big vaulted ceilings on top of me. Can you see the bubbles fly? Yeah, the bubbles fly, right? They're like little gnats. Also, the resin's kind of cold this morning. I mean, your perfect temperature is, uh-oh. Well, we have a problem. My button, I was gonna heat this up. My button is resin shut. It happened again, Judy, darn it. I'm not really gonna be able to pop my bubbles, darn it. I have my big torch, my Home Depot torch, the big gigantic one. Yeah, but the respirator's good for you, sweetheart. It's gonna protect you. And that's what we need, right? Okay, we gotta tape this off, because I want the resin to stay in the center section area here. So, yes, it is. PPP is extremely important. You are so correct. I'm actually going to try to do it right here in my lap. This is actually a easier way for me to tape this sucker off, other than getting the tape to start with my gloves on may not be that easy. But this is the beauty of lives, isn't it, folks? Okay, so to tape it, you start halfway down. I'm going to do 4 clean sides. So you start halfway down, right? And fold it under, right? Then I'll go all the way to almost to the bottom, right on top of that other tape. See, it's a little bit further down, and fold it up even more. This is the moon cusser thing. Then she goes straight across. That extra one was, I just have this thing with the tape, with the stuff on the bottom. So then the next layer is, again, I'm just gonna show this one side to you and then I'm gonna do it all. Then you start at the absolute side, right? And go down, so it barely even folds under at all. Then the next one starts this halfway up and it creates a bridge, basically, where it can't fall off. So I'm just gonna do the last three sides super quick without actually just explaining it. You've seen the one side, so you know how I'm doing this. And sadly, because this is a live, there was no other way to do this. It has to be done right at this point before we put the resin on. Otherwise, we make a big old mess. And we don't want that, right? Now I'm gonna cheat and see if I can't do it. This is it's risky. It works. If it works, it's fabulous. But when it doesn't, it's not so fabulous, right? So but I think this is really boring for everybody to see. So I'm trying really hard not to bore y'all, keep you entertained. Still, Mandy has not told me what a resin doodle is. I'm going to be calling her on the phone and ask her if it's similar to a labradoodle. I know it's not, but still very curious about this whole resin doodle thing that she's talking about. So I did it backwards, but I'm doing the under part now where it folds under. This is so the back of your canvas stays pretty, okay? And then what you do is do not let this set for the full 24 hours with the tape on. You do not want to be trying to pull this tape off when it's rigid and hard. The best thing to do is set your timer. Come in when it's about 6 to 7 hours. You might do it a little bit sooner. Pull off your tape. I think it's about 4 hours if I'm right. Pull off the tape, and then the resin that's set up on the sides will just kind of gently fold over to the edges. There are people that time it just perfectly where it just gives you a smooth rollover and it stops. So, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I will say when I came and did my gradient piece, it took me about 45 minutes to clean it up. But boy, was I happy. I was not scraping off all that hard resin and that tape. You do not want to be stuck in that situation. It ain't pretty. So set your timer, check it, set your timer, check it till because your resin and the conditions that you live in could be that at 4 hours you need to pull the tape off. Someone else, it could be 5 hours where you got to pull the tape off. Right? It all depends on where you live, the temperature that you live. My little edge here is not that fat. I'm going to have to add one more. I'm too busy talking and not spending enough time paying attention. I want a nice little place to keep that resin, because what happened is the resin goes in the canvas, it goes out to the edges, and you don't want to sink back in. You want to have enough resin where it goes all the way out to the edges and it stays there. And you've got to have some tape to kind of cradle it, right? All right. All right, I think I got this done enough. Make sure the tape's not sticking anywhere on the canvas, right? Then we're gonna do this flat. I'm gonna see if I can't find a piece of silicone mat here underneath me. It's already been used. I think I have one underneath here that's already been used that I can lay it on. Maybe not. Some acetate wouldn't hurt though. Acetate will capture the resin, and then you can actually create resin skins off of what's poured off on if you want to. I'm just going to use this to capture, and then I'll transfer it to something else after we get off the air. I'll make sure it's on a silicone mat, but I want you guys to see this. Okay, so it's sitting on a piece of acetate. There we go. We've got our resin here. And maybe what I should do is do an overhead for you guys. Let me get this camera up. Get this flipped over so you can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay. And then we're just going to put some resin on, darlings. Now see how the tape's stuck here? I don't want it stuck to the painting. I want a nice little thing here set up to cradle this resin on all the corners. And here's what it looks like that we're going to put our top coat on. Okay. Again, I'm not comfortable with the acetate, but that's what I've got right now in case something leaks through. Checking all my edges to make sure it's tight. And then we'll just pour this on. This is when I really, really, really need my heat gun. Sorry, I had to use my Home Depot blowtorch. The backup plan for the heat gun. I think the 6 ounces is going to be perfect. And here are my little hair tools, which are so handy dandy, right? You can spread that around for me. These are those little tools they apply hair color with. You can buy them on Amazon real cheap. It was like $9 for a set of 6 of these things. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that all the edges are covered first, all the corners have it, because it's going to go to the corner and then its natural thing is going to want to go back to the center again. And resin is self-leveling. So once you make sure that every edge is covered, oh my God, this peach is coming up beautifully. You know what I should do? Maybe give this away as a prize on our next event. But you guys would really have to answer some tough questions. Here's what's interesting with all that pink and all those colors. Notice none of it's moving around because the resin is alcohol soluble. That's how resin is cleaned up. And water soluble colors such as primary elements and using the varnish is water soluble. So they are not disturbed by each other. It's not disturbed at all. Let's get this torch on here. That's just pop the bubbles. And there you have it, guys. So the best I can do is kind of lift this up. Let you see the colors as we've poured them. And see how much more brighter and vibrant this piece looks. It doesn't look anything like the original one that we started with. And there you go. I'll come back here in about 6 hours and check this. Thank you, guys. I'll check this in about 6 hours. Yeah, well, Marjorie, sometimes I do. I'll let it completely drip over. Like the ocean piece we did, I let it completely drip over. This one, what I'll do is wait about, let me get this down. You wait about, like I said, 4 to 6 hours. I would set your timer at 4 and look at it. If it still seems too juicy, set your timer for another hour, okay? Your conditions and your resin is going to determine when to take the sides off. And if you take it off when it's formed and slightly thickened, but not hard as a rock, not 24 hours set, the resin will kind of pull over the edges and stop. It may not drip all the way down. You can always put a second coat on, honey. You can always do that. Okay, a little bit of business. The Winter Dreams 24, which takes 24% off your order, and the Winter Dreams 15, which takes an additional actual $15 off. That was the code we gave to the people that entered the secret phrase. We've opened it up to everybody. They can be used as many times as you want to till leap year day, the 29th. And then that code is over. I'll be back on Tuesday at 11 a.m. My name is Leslie Ohnstad. I'm the creator of Color Art Products, and I'm your host of ColorPlay Live. And one thing I want to leave with you guys, play with your toys, play with your paints. You get a sample from somebody or something you've ordered, open it up and do some swatches. Doesn't do you any good sitting in the drawer. So our goal for 24 is to follow through and finish pieces, which is what I was trying to do here, and to actually just open up and use your stuff. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate everybody hanging with me. Catherine, you hung the whole time. Thank you, Saskia. Holland, thank you for the thumbs up. Love you guys, and see you Tuesday. Bye-bye.